filmed this whole thing and I had a cow lick the entire time. If you guys didn't know, the Victoria's Secret fashion show had a revival this year. Personally, I loved it because the Victoria's Secret fashion show is my Super Bowl. Fashion show has a long history of controversies surrounding it. It all started with a man called Roy Raymond. Essentially, he went to the store, department store, to find some lingerie for his wife, and he found the shopping experience was really uncomfortable. He found that a lot of the saleswomen didn't really know how to speak to him because obviously they were only trained to talk to women about lingerie. And he ended up not buying anything, going home with a really bitter taste in his mouth, and that's where the idea of Victoria's Secret came about. He opened his first store in the suburbs of San Francisco in 1977, took out a $40,000 loan and then borrowed a similar amount from relatives. And surprisingly, it worked out. The first year he generated $500,000 of revenue. So in 1982 he opened 6 more stores. After adding cataloguing, which if you didn't know is where you get a catalogue and you order through the mail, annual income boosted up to $6 million. Raymond faced financial difficulties. He sold the company to Wexner for between $1 to $4 million. Wexner then transformed Victoria's Secret to what we know as today. Uniformity, elevation. He wanted to adopt a style of luxury. Fast forward to 1995 and we have our first Victoria's Secret fashion show. Stephanie Seymour opened in New York City at the Plaza Hotel. And even though the team thought they'd totally failed and that it was a disaster, they woke up the next morning after the show and people loved it. People couldn't stop talking about it, so they decided to have more. In 1996, what we know today as the Fantasy Bra was debuted. However, I don't think it was included in the fashion show. I think it was literally just used for a pre-event photo shoot, and that was in Monaco. In 1997, the likes of Naomi Campbell, Tyra Banks, and Helena Christina debuted in the show. Also, Tyra Banks was the first woman of colour to wear the Fantasy Bra on the runway. In 1999, the fashion show debuted online for the first time, and the website crashed with 1.5 million viewers. In 2000, Giselle walked in what was known then as the most expensive bra ever debuted on Victoria's Secret. It was $15 million and diamond and ruby encrusted. Also in the year 2000, the show was premiered on the Cannes Film Festival screens to help raise money for Cinema Against AIDS charity. In 2002, we got the introduction of what Victoria's Secret is kind of known for now, the performances. We had Destiny's Child performing. The show also moved from ABC to CBS because ABC were trying to adopt more of a family kind of vibe on their show. I don't know. This is all American TV. If you can't tell, I'm British, so I don't know anything about it. This was also the year that we got the famous PETA protests. If you haven't seen that, I'm gonna insert a picture right here. I'm sure you have seen it, but in 2003, Mary J. Blige performed. 2006, Justin Timberlake performed, and it was Giselle's last show. In 2007, the Spice Girls and will.i.am performed. I think it said on one of the websites that I read that Kanye West was also supposed to perform, but that was also the year that his mother passed away. So in 2010, Akon and Katy Perry performed. In 2011, Jay-Z and Kanye West performed. In 2013, Taylor Swift performed for the first time, and in 2014, this is what I would argue is one of the best lineups. It had Ariana Grande, Ed Sheeran, Hosier, Taylor Swift. This was a really iconic year for Victoria's Secret, especially because this meme went viral of Ariana Grande almost being hit by one of the wings. Also, just a lot of the looks from this year end up going viral, especially the pink looks. They were fun, and pink at the time was huge. In 2015, Maria Borge was the first woman of colour to walk down the runway with an afro. In 2016, Lady Gaga, Bruno Mars and The Weeknd performed. Again, really iconic show. There's so many iconic screen grabs, specifically the one of The Weeknd and Bella Hadid, because I think at the time they were dating. So you might be asking, this seems like the show is huge. Just 3 years later, the show ended up being cancelled. The show was ultimately cancelled in 2019 due to 5 years of declining viewership. To put it into perspective, in 2018 they had 3.2 million views, which is still a lot. However, in 2011 they had 10 million, so this was a big decline for them. Many things can be attributed to the cancellation of the Victoria's Secret fashion show. I would say it's mainly a growth of progressive views. Also, I pulled a lot of this from an article on the Conservatoire. I think it's Conservatoire. But I don't really agree with their take, so take this all with a pinch of salt if it sounds a little bit right-leaning, because I'm not. And Secret fashion had become notorious for many things over the year. I think specifically was the models and their diet routines. If you didn't know, Victoria's Secret models would essentially broadcast themselves on YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, their really intense diets and workout routines. Some of them even saying they wouldn't eat for days leading up to the show. It did not bode well for the models, and it did not bode well for their audience. All women notoriously spent at least 2 hours in the gym, 6 days a week. Ultimately, we started to veer away from this ultra narrow beauty standard. I think especially in like 2017, 2018, this is kind of when we had the introduction of like the slim, thick body, which I don't even want to get into because I just think that's the fact that body types trend is just weird to me. But I also think that the adoption of the unattainable beauty standard just became less and less appealing to the viewers, especially since some of Victoria's Secret, especially the pink, is supposed to be geared towards teenagers and young women, and it was promoting essentially starving yourself, which it also didn't help that in 2019 one of the showrunners, Ed Rozek, but I don't really care if I say his name wrong because he's mean. He had some really distasteful things to say in a Vogue interview about plus size models and transgender models. I don't really want to repeat it because they're mean and unkind, and if you want to look them up you can totally do that, but the point is that it was essentially just an admission from the runners of Victoria's Secret that they rejected any bodies who didn't fit their very narrow beauty standard. This led to Rozek's firing and the show being cancelled the next year. As the rise of different lingerie brands like Savage X Fenty or Skin started to be introduced, pendulum kind of swung the other way from only having thin and toned bodies to craving diversity within the fashion space. Because of this, Victoria's Secret was seen as outdated, sexist. It didn't have that appeal to the audience that it was supposed to be appealing at, which was young women. It also didn't help that Les Wexner was at this point ousted for having ties with Jeffrey Epstein. And so 6 years later we have the return, the Victoria's Secret fashion show 2025. Adriana Lima, Alessandra Ambrosio, Candice Swampel, Gigi Hadid, Bella Hadid all graced the runway once again. They were also joined by newcomers Alex Cassoni, Ashley Graham and Emily Ratajkowski. There was performances by Carol G, Missy Elliott, Twice, Madison Beer. So what was good about the show? The show was praised this year for its diversity and inclusion. Also, we had the introductions of more plus size bodies, more athletic bodies, a pregnant body was refreshing. It seemed like whoever was in charge of hiring talent as well really hit the mark. You know, Madison Beer, Twice, Missy Elliott, all groups that are big. Equally, the styling was also praised. I remember that the bra that I think Huey wore from Twice, that sold out immediately. She looked fab in it though. We had Jasmine Tokes being the first pregnant model to walk Victoria's Secret runway, and we also had Reese being the first athlete to walk the Victoria's Secret runway, which if you didn't know, she's an American basketball player, and she wore this gorgeous rose-studded set and it looked amazing. All this being said though, people also had some complaints. So what wasn't so great? Criticised because they had the introduction of a lot of nepo babies this year. Amelia Hamlin is the daughter of Lisa Rinna, and Lila Moss, Iris Law, daughter of Jude Law. And if you didn't know, Victoria's Secret fashion show is like notorious for how difficult it is to get into. Around 400 to 500 women audition every year. They're put under immense pressure and stress, and majority of them end up going home because only 45 can be hired each year. In previous years, we've seen videos of this casting process, and it's normally walking in your lingerie in front of a group of middle-aged men, which is the fact that a lot of nepo babies kind of just got hired straight out the gate. It was a bit of a slap in the face to a lot of people. I can argue that, yeah, Victoria's Secret has kind of veered away from what they're known for, which is slim, tall bodies. However, just because someone's not slim and tall does not mean that they haven't worked really hard. Like, most of the plus-size models are still in the gym 6 days a week. The casting process is very brutal, and just because you got hired one year does not necessarily mean you're going to be hired the next. Models like Gigi Hadid have been criticised for just being put in the show for the sake of it. They'll still hire her because she's Gigi Hadid. There was also no fantasy bra this year. Do I necessarily think it's a bad thing that a multi-million-pound piece of lingerie not being debuted on screen? Not necessarily, to be honest. A few of the pink outfits were also criticised for being boring and plain too, especially the ones they put on the plus-size models. Like, it kind of seemed like would try and just slap trackies on them. which is not really what people wanted. You know, we wanted to see plus size models in lingerie. My final thoughts. I think the Victoria's Secret fashion show and the whole concept of it is a little bit outdated. I think that the audience, the fashion show, that ultimately was changed the most, and that's kind of why they've taken the direction they have. Now it's kind of transformed to making lingerie appealing to women. I think also the diversity of the models was really nice this year. I hope they keep it up. Like, having people casted not just because of their body but because of their talent was really nice. Talent can also be praised this year. They had a lot of years to live up to. They had Shawn Mendes, Ariana Grande, Kanye West, Rihanna, and they completely hit the mark. There's no real conclusion to this video, to be honest. I just wanted to talk about Victoria's Secret for about 20 minutes, which I did, and I'm happy with that. So